Okay, hey guys, good evening. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and get started. There's actually not a whole lot of stuff to talk about. This week has been pretty dry news-wise for like tech-related stuff. I mean, there were a lot of games that came out this week, so we might talk about that later on. I think God of War Ragnarok on PC is available, I think it's today, if I'm not mistaken. And then earlier this week, Final Fantasy 16 on PC launched. I will be live streaming that game this weekend. So I will be playing through Final Fantasy 16 on PC. That game is probably... I wasn't expecting it as early as it came out. Like, I thought it was going to be, like, November, December. But it's nice to see that the PC version is out now. So we may talk about that a little bit. I was going to do some GPU stuff, but it looks like Tech Power Up did all the work for me, so we'll look into that later. Yeah, so this first one here, I don't know if we're going to really spend too much time talking about PlayStation 6. So PlayStation 5 Pro, we talked about that last week. So now this new article came out regarding PlayStation 6. So there are two SoCs in the works, which means that they might actually do like an RTX 20 series thing where they launch. You know how what I mean by that is, if you guys remember when Nvidia launched the RTX 20 series, they did the 2080 and the 2080 Ti together. They almost never do that. So maybe what I mean by that is when PlayStation 6 launches 3 to 4 years from now, probably more like 4 years from now, I would say, probably 2028, they may just launch, like a PlayStation 6 and a PlayStation 6 Pro at the same time or something like that. That's kind of the way I read this article. It is known, though, that it is going to be based on AMD hardware because according to another article that was earlier this week, I think it was this week, AMD won the RFP for the PlayStation 6. So AMD, once again, is guaranteed to be powering Sony's next-gen console. So that is 100% true at this point. So, yeah. So I guess that's all that I have to say on that. I mean, obviously, PlayStation 6 is years away from now, and the PS5 Pro is coming out in a few months. So that's pretty much all I have to say. So I don't know. I feel like the console market is it's becoming like Sony and Nintendo, and neither one of them are actually competing with each other. Like, Nintendo sort of has their own target demographic and their own market and their own ecosystem. And I think Sony isn't really going to be competing directly with Microsoft anymore. I think, if anything, Sony is going to sort of be the sole player in the high-end console market, and then it's just going to be competing with PC as kind of an adjacent competitor. So that's kind of the way I see things happening with the PlayStation 6 generation and anything after that, assuming there even is going to be anything beyond PlayStation 6. Because for all we know, the PS6 could be the very last traditional console. I think consoles will probably migrate into what Nintendo does and what we see with the Steam Deck and the Windows-based handhelds like the ROG Ally and all those other ones. So that's probably where the consoles are going. And it's, depending on how you look at it, some people might not consider those handhelds like consoles, but because they have Windows, so you could do PC things on them. But I don't know. I still kind of see that's where consoles are going long term. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sony is thinking of making a mobile-based SoC. So what that could mean is one of the SoCs, according to this article, there's two SoCs. Maybe one of them is a mobile handheld device like the Steam Deck, and maybe the other one is the traditional console. So they might, if they do that, then I don't see why they need to do that, because then it'll just kind of be like Nintendo, where Nintendo had the Game Boy, and then they had the GameCube, and then they had, for a while it was the DS as the mobile, and then they had the Wii and the Wii U, and then they eventually fused both into a single platform, which was a Switch. So it wouldn't make sense for Sony to do mobile and like non-mobile. I think they would just do one. It's more likely that these two SKUs are either like a PS6 and a PS6 Pro, or I guess less commonly they could be doing a mobile device, like a handheld, like the return of the Vita or something, like a Vita 2, but it competes directly with Steam Deck and the Switch 2 by the time it comes out, stuff like that. So that's where I see the console market going in the future. So I guess we can talk about Final Fantasy 16, because I see Matt said Final Fantasy 16 is very hard to run on PC versus God of War Ragnarok, runs 4K. Yeah, no, God of War Ragnarok is supposed to be very hard to run. I did an entire section on God of War system requirements, but I did say months ago that, or even last year, I said that based off of how hard the Final Fantasy 16 was to run on the PlayStation 5, I would not be surprised if Final Fantasy 16 is incredibly hard to run on PC. And I was basing that assumption off of two things. One, the fact that Forspoken was very hard to run when it launched on PC. And two, Final Fantasy 16 is very hard to run on the PlayStation 5. We're talking like 720p with FSR on the base PS5. So, Final Fantasy 16, I have been playing through it. I'm like still in the beginning. I mean, I've already beaten the game on the PlayStation 5. If you guys remember, I did the full playthrough last year, back in June of 2023. So I'm very familiar with that game. I never did the DLC sections on console, so we're going to be doing that on the PC version. So we'll see how it runs. But so far, I've been playing Final Fantasy 16 on the 7900 XTX, and it's one of those games where it actually reminds me a lot of Forspoken, because Forspoken and Final Fantasy 16 use the same engine. Although Final Fantasy 16, here's the thing, guys. Final Fantasy 16 needs very specific hardware. So first of all, at minimum, you want to install Final Fantasy 16 on a fast SSD. That means it needs to be on a Gen 4 or Gen 5 SSD, because Final Fantasy 16 uses the full direct storage, just like Forspoken did. So the faster your SSD, the smoother the frame rate will be. This is a fact because I've done a whole video on that. We've done tests on that for Forspoken, and Forspoken actually had a higher average FPS the faster the SSD was. So Final Fantasy 16 is the exact same way. No, 16 runs on it's not the exact same engine. It is a derivative of the Luminous engine. So it is still adjacent to the Luminous engine. And you can even tell when you look at like the way foliage is rendered in that game. It's very similar to how foliage looks in Forspoken, and to a lesser extent, Final Fantasy 15. So basically, 15, Forspoken, and 16 all are using the same code base under the hood. So it's all kind of like Luminous mishmash together, different variants, different revisions, whatever you want to call it. They're all basically the same engine. Now, 16 is obviously the most modern revision of Luminous, but it is kind of like a mishmash of Luminous plus like custom add-ons and things that they changed to make it work for the sort of combat system that they were going for. So Anyway, Tech Power Up already did the work for me though. So Tech Power Up has already published like benchmark results for this game. So being me, I immediately look at the 4K results. So this is a game like we were saying earlier, it's very hard to run. So currently at 4K ultra settings, and this is like native resolution, so this is no upscaling. The 4090 does 54 frames per second in Final Fantasy 16. And the XTX does 43.6. The 4080 does 42.8. I don't know why they test two different 4080s. They might as well just test one of them. I feel like that's extra work for no reason. And then the 3080 Ti did 37.5. Did I say 3080 Ti? 3090 Ti does 37.5 FPS at 4K in this game. And the 7900 XT does 37 FPS. So yeah, this game, the 4070 Ti Super does about 37, but 36.9. And it just kind of goes down from there. So very, very hard game to run. And I'm not surprised, because Forspoken at launch, Forspoken was exactly like this. Like, Forspoken had like 3 major patches, and after the third patch, or maybe it was the second patch, after the second or third patch for Forspoken, the 4090 was finally able to run above 60 at 4K without turning on like upscaling. But I remember when Forspoken first came out, the 4090 was like dipping below 60 on a regular basis at launch in that game. So I'm not surprised to see these are the results for this game. It's one of those games where I think a lot of people were saying that Yoshi P lied because he was like, oh, it's easy, it runs at 100 plus FPS, you know? But what he didn't tell the public was that was with frame gen on. So it's almost like they want you, it's like the developers want the people playing this game to use frame gen. And the way I've been playing the game, this is one of the games that I've actually been playing with frame gen on pretty much the whole time. I might turn it off and test like 1440p, meaning like quality preset. I might try that and see how that feels. But so far, from my playthrough so far, I've been actually playing it with frame gen, and it hasn't actually had any problems from my point of view, like in terms of latency and that sort of thing. So the developers want you to use frame gen, which is kind of weird, because what I noticed is if you set either native AA for it's not going to scale because you're not doing like quality, balance, that sort of stuff. You basically turn on either DLAA or native AA for FSR3. You turn that on, and it literally turns on frame gen without you knowing. Like, you have to scroll down and look at the frame gen thing, because I remember I was turning on native AA, and I was like, whoa, how come I'm playing the game now? How come the FPS is like 86 FPS by turning on native AA, but if I turn it off, the FPS like drops in half. So yeah, I found that interesting. So it's like, yeah, they want you to use the frame gen to play this game. This is what I mean when I tell you guys, like, Chinese developers are going to take over the entire gaming market, like, within the next 5 to 10 years, because Western developers, they have their own problems now with making games that don't seem to appeal to anybody anymore. If you guys know what I'm talking about, go look at the Fable trailer, all that kind of stuff. We don't need to dive into that here, but that's the problem for Western developers. There's some kind of weird, like, cultural problem with Western games these days. And then with Japanese developers want you to use frame gen, and they're using their own technology that basically hasn't changed in like 10 plus years. So they're still using like old archaic ways of doing things and writing stuff in Ruby. It's like, does anybody do that with modern games? I don't know. I'm not a game developer, so I don't claim to be an expert in this area. But when I look at how Western developers make their games, they're cranking out games that either have super long development time spans, and then they end up like this, for example. You know, these kind of things happen. Concord's director has reportedly stepped down. The game literally gets canceled after less than 5 days or whatever being on the market. So, like, this is the problem for Western developers. But then when you look at Japanese developers, you see games that come out like this, and they're like, it's perfect. Turn on frame gen. It's not a big deal, guys. Like, why is everybody complaining? Why is everyone complaining? I don't see. I think of the meme with the dog in the burning building. You know, the whole, this is fine. There's nothing wrong here. I don't understand. Why is everybody complaining? Just turn on frame gen. Like, the producer of the game is telling you to use frame gen. So clearly that means that that's how it's meant to be played. You know, like, I'm not making this up. I listened to the Japanese interview, and he literally said that to the person interviewing him. Like, we designed the game to utilize all these new technologies, one of them being frame generation. So, I don't know what to say. Obviously, they're not going to do anything. So it's like, this is a game that what you guys see is what you get. This is not going to get patched. This is not going to get fixed because the developers do not consider this a problem. They consider this as designed. They consider this as intended. So this is basically the results for this game. So, and so far, I don't know, like, I have no complaints. So far, to me, the game runs totally fine. You know, it's like 100% stable. It is what it is. It's like really hard to run though, because I can see like anybody who's playing this game at like 1440p, you know, the 4070 Ti. Let's go a little bit higher here. It's like, this is what I would consider like 1440 graphics cards. So like 64 FPS for the 7900 XT, 62 FPS for the 3090 Ti. So like they're basically, you know, like if you have a 7900 XT or a 3090 Ti, you can play the game above 60 FPS at 1440p. So yeah, this is how they intend for you to play it though. Like, they intend for you to average around 60 is what they said. So, and if you want higher frame rate, the answer is turn on frame gen. So, like, frame gen will take a 4070 Ti, which averages 60 FPS at 1440p, and that'll bump it up to like 120 frames per second. So, it's totally cool. Like, that's how it is. If you're on 1080p, like, we have to go down to the 1080p cards. So 1080p would be like this. So 71 FPS for the 6800 XT. Yeah, I mean, that was a high-end graphics card back in the day. I would say for today, 1080p realistically would be, yeah, I guess like 4070 and below. I would consider these like 1080p graphics cards by today's standards. So, yeah, even the PS5 Pro is doing 1080p 60 in this game. So very, very interesting. And it looks like the Intel graphics cards at 1080p are doing 36.5 FPS for the A770 and 35. It's weird how there's like almost no difference between the A770 and the A750. But they're stuck there, like they're stuck down there next to the RX 6600 and the RTX 3060. Even the mighty 5700 XT, a graphics card from 2019, is beating the A770. Although at 1440p, both of them completely fail because they're both falling under 30 FPS. But that is sad to see that the 5700 XT is actually, well, it's already old, but I mean, it's aging better than the A770 from what I can tell. Because this is like the third or fourth game that I have seen that has come out in the last month or two where the ancient 5700 XT is defeating the almost 2-year-old, what is this, like a 5-year-old GPU is beating a almost 2-year-old GPU. So that's weird. I mean, that's where's the 1080 Ti? Like, they should put, if they're gonna put that on here, might as well just put the 1080 Ti on here. Because that's super old too. That's even older than that's like 2 years, almost 2.5 years older than the 5700 XT. That is some old stuff. You're getting that PS5 Pro 30th anniversary edition? Wait, there's a thing? That's a thing? .1080 Ti got bumped off list because of Alan Wake 2. Yeah, that game kind of killed it. Yeah. That's almost a year ago now. Alan Wake 2, man. That's a game that I still don't know anything about. I'll probably never play that game. And all I know about Alan Wake 2 was that there was a weird music video at the Game Awards. There was not a music video. It was like the Alan Wake, the whole segment on Alan Wake 2. There was this weird, like, I keep saying music video. There was like this choreographed dance sequence. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Like, there was literally like the Alan Wake people were like dancing on the stage. It was weird. Like, I wasn't expecting it. I don't think anybody was expecting that. That's all I know about. Every time I think of Alan Wake 2, I think of the people dancing on the stage because I don't know anything about the actual game. So, yeah, this is a true next gen game. Like, Final Fantasy 16 did not release on the PlayStation 4. You guys remember that. When this game came out June of last year for PS5, it was PS5 only, which ultimately is what hurt its sales figures because people who had PS4 couldn't play it, people who had only PC couldn't play it. It was basically PS5 exclusive, and now we get to see the full power of Final Fantasy 16 and how it crushes every single graphics card at 4K. Not a single GPU can go above 60 FPS, or even like 4090 gets close, 54. It tried real hard, but even the 4090 couldn't do it. So, like, this is the sort of thing, when you see more games launch like this is what proves that the 5090, the 5080, whatever AMD is going to do next, all that stuff, this proves that we need even more rasterization power because, like, games like Final Fantasy 16 prove that we are not anywhere close to being done with rasterization. The developers don't consider it unoptimized. The developers consider it, this is how it is. That's it, man. And the thing is, like, here's the thing okay, hold on. One thing I want to know about this. What was what was the test setup? Like, what do they actually use? Okay, I want to know what SSD. The only thing that matters is what SSD did they use. You know what's sad about this? You know how much of a fail this is? The most important thing on this list is the SSD. And the one thing that they did not list was the actual model of SSD. How do they put so much effort on the cooler? Or no, the RAM, well, okay, whatever, the RAM, whatever. The motherboard's listed, that's fine. The CPU's listed, that's fine. But why did they not show the actual SSD? For all we know, they said NVMe, so at least it's an NVMe. But I don't know if it's a Gen 3, is it a Gen 4, is it a Gen 5? I don't know what type of SSD this is. All I know is it's an NVMe, which is good. So, but I don't know what it is. So I can't tell, like, because this is the sort of game that uses direct storage, just like Forspoken. So this, if they're going to test this, they need to be testing this on a Gen 4 or Gen 5 SSD. Because if it's, well, okay, it's not SATA. It's not a SATA SSD. So it's probably okay. But still, that's like one of the most important things. For a game that uses direct storage, you always want to list the name, the actual model of the SSD. Otherwise, like, what is this? It's like, okay, this could have been like the cheapest Gen 3, 5, 6, 7-year-old SSD for all we know. This could have been like an ancient Samsung Evo, like a 960 Evo from 2017. So it's like one of the older Gen 3 SSDs. So, but yeah, this should be running. Although I'll tell you, I've been running mine on, I've been testing mine on Gen 5, and I've been testing it on Gen 4, and both of them are fine. So it uses direct storage just like Forspoken. The game has incredibly fast load times because of direct storage. You basically open the map and you warp in and you're there. You load up the game, you click continue, and you're literally loaded into the game within like an instant, just like Forspoken. So yeah, definitely it needs a fast SSD because it is designed to use direct storage. So very good game though. Like this game, so I was thinking of getting so there's a lot of games that came out this week. A lot of games. There was a game called Enotria. It's like based off of Italian folklore. It's basically a Dark Souls. It's a Souls-like game. So Enotria came out. God of War Ragnarok's out this week. And there was another one. Frostpunk 2 is like another one that came out literally, I think, today or yesterday. So there's like a whole bunch of games that came out like this month alone. This month has seen a lot of games. Starting with Astrobot on PS5, Space Marines 2. Didn't Star Wars Outlaws also come out this month? I think it did. I forget which day. Star Wars Outlaws, Enotria, Final Fantasy 16 PC, God of War Ragnarok. I don't know if there's anyone else that... there was that Harry Potter game that came out, but that's really easy to run. That's kind of like Rocket League. But the Harry Potter Quidditch Champions also came out this month. I think it was this month. So like a whole bunch of games came out in September, which was very surprising. But out of all of them, the only one that I'm probably going to play... Okay, Space Marines 2, because I got that game for free. But yeah, other than that, the only one that I'm actually going to play is Final Fantasy 16 on PC, which is kind of interesting because I already played it on console, but I'm going to play it again on PC. And we're going to completely skip over all the other games that I just mentioned. I'm not going to be playing God of War Ragnarok. We're not going to be playing Enotria, although I was very tempted to get Enotria because it is a Souls-like game, and I wanted to see how it compared to, like Lords of the Fallen and Lies of P, because I think those are the closest comparisons. Maybe Stellar Blade, although Stellar Blade is not really like a Souls game, but yeah, we got a lot of those type of games this year. You know, like Black Myth Wukong, I don't consider that like Dark Souls at all, but a lot of people seem to consider it that way. I don't really see it that way. But if you want to lump Black Myth Wukong in there, you got Wukong, Enotria, Stellar Blade. There's like another one that I'm forgetting right now that came out earlier this year. But yeah, like there's been a lot of these type of games. Sony doing a bad one, limiting the games they release going forward. Wait, what does that mean? So, like, Astrobot's not available globally? Space Marines 2, best game to come out this year after Wukong? Yeah, Space Marines 2 is very fun. Yeah, that's a good game. That's a good game that runs surprisingly well. Space Marines 2 has a lot of enemies on screen at a time, and it runs so well. Like, I don't know, is it, I guess it was tested by someone, but yeah, Space Marines 2, man, that game's good. For me, though, this game took priority. So basically, Final Fantasy 16 cut in line. So I'll be playing this one more than Space Marines. We're probably going to play 16 all the way to completion. And I guess after that, I'll try to finish Space Marines 2. I still need to finish Black Myth Wukong, so I'm probably going to... I don't know which one I'm going to finish first between those two. But 16 definitely, like, cut in line. And 16 is basically, like, top priority for me now. So, like, all those other games, Wukong's, like, down. Space Marines is down. Final Fantasy 16's, like, up at the top. And then these other games that I was thinking of playing, like God of War Ragnarok and Notria, I was thinking of playing them, but I don't know if I'll be able to even get to them at this point. God of War also didn't require you to sign into PSN, which was weird. Wait, why would God of War require... Do any of those games require that? Oh, didn't Horizon... Was Horizon Forbidden West the game that required that? I can't remember. I don't think so. I don't think it was required. I think it was optional. Oh, Helldivers 2, but that's a live service game. God of War Ragnarok is not available in your area. Hold on, let me see something. I need to check. So God of War 2, or God of War 2. God of War Ragnarok, that was out when? Today? Yeah, it says now available on Steam. It shows it's available now on Steam. God of War Ragnarok, was it on PS4? Oh yeah, Dante says it was on PS4. Yeah, so if that game came out on PS4, and Final Fantasy 16 did not come out on PS4. So I would assume 16 is harder to run. 16 is, like, really hard to run. Oh, the other game that came out, Lollipop Repop, came out last week. Yeah, that was another one. So, yeah, we got a lot of games in September. Actually, I mean, looking at this list, I feel like September had the most games. I'm just looking through the list. So, August had Black Myth Wukong, WoW's expansion, The War Within, and Star Wars Outlaws was the end of August. It was like the very, very end of August. Star Wars Outlaws and Visions of Mana. Those two. So I count like four games in August. But then September, Harry Potter, Astro Bot, Space Marines, Lollipop, Enotria, God of War. That's like 6 games. And Final Fantasy. Seven games. Chains of Olympus, Ghosts of Sparta, 1, 2. No, I didn't play any of those. I'm not a big fan of the God of War franchise. I played a little bit of No, I think it was God of War 2. I played a little bit of God of War 2 on the PlayStation 2, like a long time ago. So, because originally God of War was on PlayStation 2. God of War 2 was also PlayStation 2, and I don't remember what happened after that. I think, wasn't God of War 3 PS3 only? Or something like that. I forget what happened to the franchise after the second game. I played a little bit of God of War 2 back in the day. That was it. Like, I have not played the remake. So God of War on PlayStation 4, I never played it. I don't have it. I've never played it. Same thing with God of War Ragnarok. PS3 they had... God of War 3 was PS4? Oh, it was Oh, yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. So it was on PS3, then they had the remaster on PS4. Yeah, PS4 was such a weird console generation. It like, I consider PS4 the generation that was the console generation of like remakes. Like there was just a bunch of remakes, right? Like you look at like even like Final Fantasy VII remake that was on PS4. Like that's the epitome of like remakes. That was the most extreme remake because it was so different from the original. But what I'm saying is there was so many like remastered, remake edition, you know what I'm saying? Or just a re-release of a game that was on an older console. I feel like PS4 was just loaded with all that kind of stuff. Because didn't PS4 also get the Uncharted, like the, what was it, Legacy of Thieves edition or something? Like it was like the all three games or something in one. And the Devil May Cry collection. Wasn't that PS4? Maybe that was PS3. I don't remember anymore. But there was like so many remastered things of like old games for PS4. Just a bunch of remasters and just like, yeah. I can't think like what's an original, like, okay, besides Bloodborne, what was like the most original game that came out in the PS4 era? Because you can't claim GTA 5 because GTA 5 was Xbox 360, PS3. Like, oh, and then it got the remastered edition for the PS4 and the Xbox One. Killzone 2 was PS3. No, I'm saying like what's the most like defining original title for the PS4 era? And this applies to Xbox One also. Like, what? Like, the only thing I can think of is Bloodborne. Bloodborne on PS4 to this day is still a PS4 exclusive. Officially, it's still a PS4 exclusive. Ghost of Oh yeah, you're right. That was PS4. I can't believe that was PS4. That game is probably the best looking PS4 game. I guess the Horizon series, Horizon Zero Dawn, was also PS4, now that I think about it. So yeah, I guess Sony, yeah, if you're gonna count the Sony first party games, yeah, then okay, so I can see that. But okay, not counting the first party games, because you can always rely on first party franchises. Without the first party, what is the most like era defining game of the PS4 era, not counting first party? So no Ghost of Tsushima, no Ghost of Tsushima, no Horizon Zero Dawn, no Ratchet and Clank, none of that stuff. Like, what was there? I mean, it always goes back to Bloodborne. Bloodborne's like the one game. Call of Duty was not original. Call of Duty has been around on PS3, Xbox 360. In fact, Call of Duty was probably more popular in the 360 era than it was in the Xbox One era. Infamous was on PS3. I'm talking about original, like, what was iconic? You know what I'm thinking of? Destiny and Bloodborne. Those are the two. Those are the two games. All those other franchises that you guys are mentioning, Call of Duty, that is like PS3. When I think of Call of Duty, I think of PS3. Infamous, I think of PS3. Destiny was on PS3? What? Days Gone was not. I mean, I guess, yeah, that. I feel like apocalyptic zombie has been done before, though. Destiny was PS3? How did they make Destiny run on a console that only had like 256 gigs of RAM? How does that work? I can't even imagine how they program that. See, it all goes back to Bloodborne. Like, that's like the one game. Like, Bloodborne is like the one game. It's the one game that is like console defining for PS4. Because to this day, it's still a PS4 exclusive. It's like, yeah, okay, there's the whole like Shad PS4 and all the initiatives there. But at the end of the day, officially speaking, Bloodborne is literally like the one PS4 game. Like, you have to play it officially on there. It's like, yeah, you can play it on PS5. It still runs at 30 frames per second for some weird reason. But yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's like the one game. Interesting. See why? Do you guys see now why I consider PS4 that whole time frame, like that whole era was basically remakes and remasters of old games? No, because Gran Turismo was already a well-established franchise. In fact, I kind of think that Gran Turismo was most successful in the maybe even PS2. Like, I'd have to go back and look at like how successful the Gran Turismo games were. All I know is Gran Turismo on PlayStation 2 had, I think, what was the Gran Turismo on PS2? It was like the most Gran Turismo and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas were like the most sold games. Like, those games sold the most copies on PlayStation 2 in the PlayStation 2's lifespan. So I guess that's it then. Because, I mean, look, another remake. See, Silent Hill 2, another remake. Won't be available on other consoles until October 8th next year. Which means this is either some kind of like... Silent Hill 2 remake has already been confirmed to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Oh, but it's going to be on PC. But officially, it has been confirmed not to be on other formats. I don't understand how, like, how does Xbox keep getting locked out of these things? Like, why is it always, if it's not PlayStation timed exclusive, it's always like PlayStation and PC. PlayStation and PC. Why is Xbox always left out? Is Microsoft trying to basically sell Game Pass to everybody and just convert everybody over to PC and just rely on Game Pass? Like, what's going on here? I don't understand what's going on with Xbox. Like, I really don't understand, like, why. I understand that the long-term strategy is to move everything to a subscription-based service, and they don't want anybody buying games anymore. They just basically want you to pay for the subscription every month, and basically that's how they want it to be. Game Pass, just everyone should have, in Microsoft's mind, everybody should have Game Pass, and that's how it's supposed to be, and no one needs to own any games. Because they basically want gaming to be the exact same way streaming TV shows and watching movies on like Netflix. Microsoft wants the gaming industry to basically be like Netflix and Hulu and all the Disney Plus, all the streaming services. Microsoft literally wants the gaming industry to move in that direction. They don't want gamers to own actual games anymore, let alone physical games. They don't want you to actually own the digital games. I mean, they don't care if you have the digital games, like whatever, okay, if you want to own the right to use license key. But they just want everybody to be Game Pass, you know? So I don't know, like you read stuff like this, it's like, oh, it's going to be on PlayStation 5 and PC. And this is a pretty big game. Silent Hill 2 is like a huge classic, and it's getting a remake. But you can't get it if you're on Xbox, and it's not coming to Game Pass. So I don't understand, man. Like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand it. Like, it's always PlayStation, it's always PlayStation, but then PC's just kind of there, and like no one ever mentions it. You know what I'm saying? Like, every time they show these trailers and these announcements, it's always from the lens of PlayStation. and then PC is just silently there. It's like, okay, it's also on there. Okay, that's how it always is. Apparently, Capcom sells more games on PC than their console versions. That makes sense. The PC gaming market is already larger than the console market, so that makes total sense. That's well understood. So the largest gaming market is mobile. It's smartphones. Second is PC. Third is console. In terms of the actual size, in terms of like the volume of games and the actual revenue, if you break it up into those three different sectors or categories, mobile is the biggest, PC is second, console is third. So PC overtook console like a long time ago. Square Enix is planning to drop their exclusivity contract with Sony. Well, they're just going to let it expire. They're not going to renew it. That's good, because that means by the time the final part of Final Fantasy VII comes out, that'll probably be on PC day one. So no more waiting around. So that's good. Yeah, because when does this come out? This comes out like next month. Yeah, Silent Hill 2 is only a few weeks away. It's like 2.5 weeks out. So we've got Silent Hill 2, Ys 10 Nordics, and Shadow of the Damned Hella Remastered, and those are October. And then for November, there's Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that's the only game that I have listed. I think there was like another game, but I forgot what it was. And then December, there's literally... Oh, Indiana Jones, I think, is December, right? I think Indiana Jones is December. That's why the Switch and the Steam Deck are a huge success. Because they know mobile is number one. %68% of operating profit from MMO games, 31% from mobile games, 0.5 from non-MMO PC and console games. Yeah, that makes sense. Because Final Fantasy, so basically, okay, let's open up Paint here. So we'll run with those numbers. So look, check this out. So Square Enix, whoops. So, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Square Enix, if this is the pie, right? So like if, let's say, what was it, 60, so like 2/3, a little more than 2/3. So this section right here is literally like 2 games. Although, I don't know what they classify. So, this is 2 games. This is basically Final Fantasy 14 and Final Fantasy 11. Wait, 11. If they count their, like, that Final Fantasy VII mobile game and that other thing that they have, then if that's counted as a... It depends. If they're counting live service as MMO, then there's some other mobile games that are actually in that 68%. And then you have like that little sliver that's like this, essentially. So like this thing right here, that is this, you know what this is? Final Fantasy 16. And games like Forspoken. Those fall into that category. Or I guess, what? Visions of Mana. Okay, if we're counting this year. If we're counting this year only. If we're going to go by calendar year. What else did Square Enix release this year besides those two? I think those are the only two. Yeah, that's it. I don't see anything else. Oh, what am I talking about? How could I forget? Oh, wow, I'm so dumb. Final Fantasy... How could I forget Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Yeah, duh. In fact, 16 PC literally just came out, so that barely even counts. Really, that number, that 0 point whatever number, is basically these two games. It's literally those two, because 16 PC just came out, so we aren't even going to count that. But technically, that would fall into that chunk. Forspoken was last year, so that doesn't even count. So basically, that's it. Rebirth and Visions of Mana are literally less than 1% of their revenue. Is that revenue? Oh, that's profit? Oh, that's profit. Okay, revenue numbers are going to be different then. Because 7 Rebirth and Visions of Mana are pulling in more revenue than 0.5%. But the profit margin is probably a lot lower. So that's why it ends up being less than 1%. The revenue for Rebirth and Visions of Mana is probably like less than 2%. Or maybe it's less than 3 or something, or 4, but the profit is like way lower. That's the problem. Because the mobile games have like so much it's just like what? There's the FF7 Gacha. There's the what else do they have? I don't even know. They've got like a whole bunch of random mobile games that aren't even in English. They're only in Japanese. The data was from August 6th. Yeah, so that won't include Final Fantasy 16. In fact, that won't include Visions of Mana either. So basically, wait a minute. So that means, yeah, that's August 6th. So that doesn't include Visions of Mana. Visions of Mana was August 29th. So literally, the only thing on there is just, yeah, that's basically one game. 0.5%. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is 0.5% of all of their profit. And then there's that one. What was that called? Ever Crisis. Ever Crisis is the name of that game. Ever Crisis Final Fantasy VII is the gacha game. And then there's some other mobile things that they have. So yeah, you can see why they put all their effort. Realistically, like 11 is just kind of there. I don't think a lot of people play 11 anymore. It's super old. But 14, Final Fantasy 14 is still their cash cow. Like that's basically that brings in all the money every month. Romancing Saga, when was that? Is that even out right now? I think it is out actually. Romancing Saga. Oh no, that's October 24th. That doesn't count. It's not out yet. October 24th. You know what? I'm adding that to my list. Romancing Saga 2. Revenge of the Seven. That is October 24th. That's 4 weeks away. Yeah, so that doesn't count. So basically, this is what they got. This is, what was this? 31. Yeah. And this is the 68. There. It's not on the chart. This is what I put. Dragon Quest 3. That's November. Dragon Quest 3 Remake is November. November 14th. Oh, that comes out the week of Assassin's Creed Shadows. HD 2D remake. Yeah, no. So this is basically there was also that I think they canceled that game. There was like a Nier gacha game. Nier Automata gacha or something like that. There was something. There was some Nier like mobile game. So I'm trying to remember what else they have in the mobile genre. They've got like some other random things. But yeah, like the majority of their money, surprisingly, the money is coming from this. 14, man. Final Fantasy 14. Final Fantasy 14. That I can't think of any other game. Like that was a game that I literally like dropped everything to play that game this year. Back in June, the very end of June and the first part of July was literally just Final Fantasy 14. I can't think of like what else was going on at that time. Like it was literally from, let me see, when was that? That was the end of June. That was like June. Yeah, from June 28th until like July 7th was literally just Final Fantasy 14. Like time for me literally just froze and it was just Final Fantasy 14 the whole time. So it's like that is the reason why Final Fantasy 14 is like 68.4% of their profit. Yeah, but we're not going to count that to this. You can't count games that have not come out to these percentages because those will change these ratios. But yeah, this is basically it, right? Like this is all they have right now. So basically, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is 0.5%. Final Fantasy 14 and Final Fantasy 11 are 68.4%, and then they have Ever Crisis, Nier, and whatever random other mobile games. You know, I'm surprised that 14 is more of their profit than their gacha games, because the gacha games, I would imagine, well, I guess that means that the people who play the Square Enix gacha games don't wail on the games. Like, there's not as much incentive for them to wail on the game, which would explain why these ratios are the way they are. So when you think about it, if they did not have a timed exclusive, how would this have changed? Like if Rebirth came out on other platforms from the start, would this percentage be different? And if so, by how much? See, I don't really know if 16 on PC is really that successful because, like, let me see, what are the concurrents right now for that game? I mean, okay, so 16, currently there are 16,271 people playing Final Fantasy 16 on PC. So I don't know if that's considered a success or a failure. I don't know what Sony was expecting there, but what I can say is I'm fairly certain that when Final Fantasy 16 came out on PlayStation 5 last year, there was way more than 16,000 people playing Final Fantasy 16 when it was new on console. See, So it almost makes you wonder when you look at stuff like this, does it matter if they can't, like, if they let the Sony exclusive contract expire or not? Because how much better would this have performed if it was not a timed exclusive? I mean, look at Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16 has only been out since Monday. We're here at Thursday, and there's only like 16,000 people playing the game on PC right now. So I don't know. Let me see. What was the timed thing? Because I have a feeling this was not that successful on PC. Like, I don't think a lot of people cared to play this on PC. Otherwise, that 16,000 should have been a lot higher. But this does kind of show that if these are the sort of numbers, like, promoting the game themselves was probably not even worth it, if that makes sense. Because they had a lot of marketing dollars from Sony to market the game last year. They didn't have that this time around. So God of War and Final Fantasy are neck and neck and concurrent. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised God of War is that low. Considering God of War literally just came out. And it's that low. What that tells me is that there's not a lot of interest in Sony's first-person titles on PC. It's like, yeah, there's a decent number of people playing them, but it doesn't seem like it's that huge. Like, I wonder, like, how many people are playing a game that came out earlier this year? Like, if we look at Horizon Forbidden West, like, let's see how many people are playing that. 2,274 people playing Horizon Forbidden West. So, on Steam. So, that's, you know... Actually, I'm surprised it's that high. I thought it was going to be lower. I thought it was going to be like 900 people or something. So, I'm actually surprised to see that many people playing Horizon Forbidden West on PC right now. So, that's actually good that it actually exceeded my expectations there. But yeah, 16,000 for God of War, that's not really that great, considering it literally just came out on PC. What that means is that the vast majority of people that wanted to play God of War Ragnarok already played God of War Ragnarok on the PlayStation 5. And they don't care to get the PC version. That's basically what this looks like to me. And it's pretty much the same with Final Fantasy 16. The only problem was God of War Ragnarok was really good looking on PS5, and it ran great on PS5. Final Fantasy 16 looked terrible on PS5 and ran horribly on PS5. There are only a few games that people really want on PC. One was Ghost of Tsushima, and the other is Stellar Blade. Wait, a lot of people really wanted to play Ghost of Tsushima on PC? Really? Ghost of Tsushima has 6,500 people in-game. So yeah, that's a lot more than Horizon Forbidden West. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Oh, I don't even have that. I don't think I have that on here. Yeah, I don't have the Steam version of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think I have the Epic Games one, because it came out on Epic Games first. Final Fantasy VII Remake Has 1,133 people playing it. Well, that's been out for a long time, so. And that isn't even the newer one. Wasn't... So the Helldivers 2 thing was the one that required the PSN? I don't think it was Ghost of Tsushima. You're forgetting Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden West was before Ghost of Tsushima. That was March. Ghost of Tsushima was May. Both of them were this year on PC. Yeah, I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, when I think of those games, though, like, when I think of the Sony first-person games, or the first-party games, like Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon Forbidden West, then I think of the Square Enix games, like Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7. I would rather play the Square Enix games. Even though the Square Enix games are harder to run, and they probably don't look as good, at least geometrically, although some people might think that, oh, the Square Enix games look better because the art style's better. I mean, that's debatable. I mean, that's a subjective statement, but the reality is the Sony games, they are using a more modern approach to the way the game was designed, and as a result, they run better while looking really good. Meanwhile, you have the Square Enix games. So Final Fantasy VII Remake was made in UE4, and Final Fantasy 16 is using like a custom, let's call it Luminous Engine +++. So it's like that kind of thing. And they bolted on all these things to get like FSR3 and DLSS working, because those weren't native to Luminous. It's like, oh, we gotta add the NVIDIA DLLs and all this stuff for the DLSS. Then we gotta go and add all the FSR add-ons, and then put the SDKs and get all that stuff working. So it's like they just kind of bolted it all on. Although I will say, like Final Fantasy 16, it takes Square Enix a couple of tries, because Forspoken was Forbroken, like when it first came out, with all this random stuff just bolted on there. Then they eventually fixed it due to all the backlash. Now, having learned the hard lesson of being criticized by the PC gaming audience, now they release their premium game, Final Fantasy 16, on PC, and it's perfection compared to the way Forspoken was when it launched. So, meanwhile, Sony's games launched and they didn't have any problems. You see what I'm saying? So, Final Fantasy VII... See, the reason why Final Fantasy VII never really did a whole lot is because you got to remember, first of all, Final Fantasy VII came out on PlayStation 4. Then it came out on PlayStation 5. Then it came out on Epic Games. Then it came out on Steam. So that game was released like 4 times over the course of 3.5 years. Or some crazy... Because what? Final Fantasy VII Remake was originally... if I remember correctly, it was like spring 2020? It was like pandemic? Like, 7 came out in the pandemic. Like, the beginning of the pandemic was when Final Fantasy VII Remake actually came out on PS4 as a PS4 game. Then, the PS5 came out. And then, I think it was like a year later, after the PS4 launch, or the game came out PS4, a year later it comes out on PS5 with the Yuffie DLC. Or actually, maybe... that was around the time that Epic Games got the game, because Epic Games got the game, but Steam didn't get the game. So there was like a whole bunch of weird things. Like it came out on Steam like way later. So by the time it came out on Steam, like all the people who actually really wanted to play it, they already played it. They either played it on PS4, or they played it on PS5, or they played it on Epic Games. So it's like they had 3 options before the game finally came to Steam. So that's why the Steam games were never that good. So 13,000 concurrent is actually pretty impressive, considering by the time that thing launched on Steam, nobody cared about it. I mean, case in point, I'll use myself as an example. I don't have Final Fantasy VII Remake on Steam. I have it on Epic Games, and I have it on the console. So I've got like 2 different versions of that game. One is the PS4 version, and then they gave me the free PS5 upgrade, so I have it on PS5. And then I have it on Epic Games. But I never bought it on Steam. I bought it on Epic Games to play it on PC, which I never ended up finishing it on PC. And then I played it on the PlayStation, and I actually finished it on the PS5. So, like, I'm just using myself as an example, because I would imagine, like, a lot of people would have done a similar thing. They would have either played it on PS4, and they were done with it, and that was it. Or they, played it on PS5, I guess, which is kind of how I played a lot of it. And then they played it on Epic Games, and that was it. So, who knows if Square Enix stops the Sony exclusive stuff. What's stopping Epic Games from telling Sony or telling Square Enix, hey, why don't you release Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Epic Games 8-month exclusive? You know what I'm saying? Like, they could really do that to screw over Steam. Because I'm the type of person, I don't really have any loyalty to Steam. So it's like, I'm not going to wait. Like, if Epic goes and does like a exclusive for Rebirth, and you have to wait another like 8-9 months for the Steam release, because that's kind of what happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake, I ain't gonna wait. I'm just gonna get it from Epic Games. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be in the same boat. So, I mean, there was a couple of games that were like that. The Kingdom Hearts games. I think Steam still doesn't have Kingdom Hearts, right? Kingdom Hearts. Okay, it does now. When did it come out on Steam, though? What? It got it this year? Kingdom Hearts 3 came to Steam June 13th of this year? Talk about Epic Games exclusive deal. Wow. Yeah, too bad I already platinumed that game on Epic Games, so it's like whatever. But see, that's what Epic Games is trying to do. That's how they're trying to compete with Steam, I guess. They're trying to get the timed exclusives, so they can get people on their platform, and then those people are just gonna not even bother with the Steam thing. So unless there's someone who just really, really wants to use Steam for some reason, I don't know. I don't know what the history with Epic Games is, considering how everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of developers are using Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine is Epic Games' engine, so it's they're so yeah, it's kind of weird how the game industry has gotten to the way it is. It's not good. The game industry is not good. I don't like when people just use Unreal Engine for their whatever game they want to make. Epic Games influenced the design and path of the current consoles. Did they? In what way? At least Epic gives a few games free month. Yeah. Well, see, the people who believe in preserving physical games, they're gonna be like, well, the problem with buying the games on Steam, well, or I guess a digital copy, is it's not even really like when you buy a game from Steam, you're buying a license key. You're buying something called an RTU, or a right to use. You're not actually getting the game. Like you're getting the right to play, to get access to the game digitally on the Steam platform or whatever platform you're purchasing the game from. That's a digital copy. So if there's a, you know, like a hypothetical World War III, the world gets nuked, we all get sent back like 60 years into the past from a technology standpoint, the internet ceases to exist for a pretty long time due to nuclear fallout, you know, EMP shockwave, the whole, like, all the telecommunications are disrupted for a long, long time. You can kiss your digital games goodbye. You know what I'm saying? Like if all that stuff gets like destroyed, that whole infrastructure, I mean, MOBAs, MMOs, like any sort of live service game, those things are just straight up like dead, gone in an instant. But, you know, the physical, the things on the disc, the optical media, that stuff will still be around. Assuming it doesn't get scorched in a conflagration or whatever. Epic Games killed Alan Wake 2 sales on PC. Was Alan Wake 2 an Epic Games exclusive? Let's look at here. Let me see. Oh, here's a new one. Microsoft Flight Simulator. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 gets detailed PC requirements. The ideal spec recommends 64 gigabytes of RAM. All right, here we go. It's another one of these. I don't know how we're gonna get through this one, but look. So wait a minute. What? Why? What? Huh? What? What is this? What is this? AMD, NVIDIA, what is up with this segregation? Like, what is this? What is this nonsense? What if I want to run an NVIDIA card with a Ryzen CPU? Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. What if I want to run an Intel with a Radeon? I mean, that's pretty common. Like, what? Windows 10. What is the point of this? Windows 10 with the late... Hold on a second. Wait a minute. This is Microsoft. Microsoft made this thing? Microsoft... Do you guys see how stupid this is? Man, this... And Microsoft wonders why people make fun of them and, like, belittle them and always criticize them. Think about this. Microsoft, the maker of Windows 11, is saying Windows 10 with the latest update. When they could have just easily, like, said Windows 11 with the latest update. What is this? Windows 10 with the latest update? How is Microsoft going to advertise Windows 10 when they want everybody to be on Windows 11? That is... I don't even know what to call that. I almost want to say incompetence, but it's not it's like inverse incompetence, but then no, that would actually be smart. So I don't understand what they're doing here. Like, this is confusing. This is extremely confusing. Windows 10, and it's all the same thing. Windows 10 with latest update. Windows 10 with latest... Did they literally type it like that? Anyway, DirectX 12. Okay, CPUs. Does this even actually? Okay, this CPUs do actually matter for Flight Simulator, definitely, because these can be very CPU heavy. And the CPUs are like, this is like a joke. Like, what is this? Wait a minute, hold on. Do you guys see what I mean by like incompetence? First of all, look what they got here for the minimum. Is this minimum? What is this? Oh, minimum. Okay, minimum. Minimum Ryzen 5 2600X or an Intel 6800K. How many people even know what socket this Intel CPU uses? Does anybody even know what this socket is, or what socket this CPU's on? There's probably only like 2 people that actually have motherboards that still support the CPU. This is a 6800K. Like, this is from, hold on a second, 6800K isn't even, this is Broadwell E? Or is this Skylake? Wait a minute. What? Hold on a second. What the? Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. Man. Oh, man. Microsoft, really? i7 6800K. What is this? This is the stupidest thing. This is Broadwell E, man. This is LGA 2011 version 3. There's only like 2 people in the whole world that probably still have a motherboard that supports this. Like, this was new in like what year was that? 2017 or something? Was it 16, 17, somewhere in there? First of all, this is not Skylake. This is older than Skylake. This Skylake was a 6700K. A 6800K is a Broadwell. This is a 5th gen Intel HEDT. This is like a Threadripper type CPU. Just to put things into perspective, back when Intel actually had HEDT, because they don't actually have, like, they have like a Threadripper Pro equivalent now on the Xeon side, but they don't actually have anything in HEDT. So this was the HEDT. So they're basically saying minimum spec, you need a Radeon, no, you need a Ryzen 5 or a massive HEDT LGA 2011 version 3 from like 7-8 years ago or some nonsense. And the thing is, this is like 5th gen Broadwell E. Like, what? This is the dumbest thing I've seen. Like, this doesn't make any sense at all. I think this is a mistype. I think somebody meant to type 6700K. This is not LGA 1151. This is LGA 2011 version 3. Yeah, I know, right? Who is running this? Like I said earlier, this is for the minimum spec is for like the 2 people on the planet that still have one of these. All right, and then we have what? Wait a minute, hold on a second. Wait a minute. What the? What? What is this? What is this? Hold on a second. Wait, whoa, no. Does anybody see what's wrong with this GPU setup? RX 5700. So this GPU is like a GTX 1080. This is basically a GTX 1080. So they're basically saying minimum spec is GTX 1080 or GTX 970? What? Wait, what is this? Also, this is an 8 gigabyte GPU? Why does it say 4 gigabyte VRAM when this is an 8 gigabyte graphics card? And this is a 3.5 gigabyte graphics card. Although they're probably like, oh, we'll round it up. No one's gonna know. You know, like, what is this? First of all, the Intel CPU for minimum spec, this is a hoax. This thing basically doesn't exist. And then you have like they mislabel the VRAM on the AMD card and they list a 10-year-old NVIDIA graphics card as the minimum? What? Did anybody test this? Or do they just like pick random things that they saw laying around in the back in like a crate somewhere and they're like, yeah, I'll just write that stuff down. No one's actually... It's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's Microsoft Flight Simulator. Who actually is going to play Microsoft? Okay, to Microsoft's credit, they're probably thinking, you know, like, no one actually reads the minimum spec. So we can put whatever we want on here. No one's actually going to try to run Flight Simulator on minimum spec. It just doesn't happen. It's not real. Like, no one reads minimum spec when they're trying to see if they can run the game or not. So that's probably why they just put whatever they thought here as a joke. Because that is a joke. Like, this is complete nonsense. All right, let's see if the recommended makes any sense. So, recommended, first of all, for some weird reason, they're still recommending Zen Plus. So the only difference was they went from a Ryzen 5 to a Ryzen 7, but it's still the exact same IPC, and it's still the exact same CPU generation. So I don't know how that works. Meanwhile, on Intel, they went from an ancient Broadwell E high-end Threadripper thing to like a 10th gen i7. What? Okay, although to be fair, like, these seem more... I don't know about the AMD because this is like super old at this point, but these are like, this Intel CPU makes a lot more sense than this garbage thing. Okay, then we've got Radeon. Okay, they have the 5700 XT and they have the 2080. Okay, this is kind of like a 2070 Super, to put things, or you could think of it like a 1080 Ti. The 5700 XT is basically a 1080 Ti. So 1080 Ti, 2080. You know, 2080 is like a little bit faster than the 1080 Ti in most modern titles anyway. So yeah, these are kind of comparable. So I would say that's fine. This doesn't make any sense, but this made no sense at all, and this was completely wrong. So I don't know. Like, the minimum is a joke. Like, you don't read minimum because it's like, it's fake. This is literally fake news. Someone just made this up to troll people who are actually going to try to run it at minimum. Okay, then 32 gigs of RAM. Okay. And interesting. So you have to have for minimum, you have to have a 10 meg internet connection. But for recommended, you have to have... Is this recommended? Yeah, recommended, you have to have a 50 meg internet connection for some reason. Like, for some reason, there's a difference in the internet speed. Alright, and then for ideal, whatever ideal means, it's hilarious. There's, like, no resolution recommendations. There's, like, nothing. It's just nothing. Okay, cool. It's ideal settings. Ideal settings. So we got the Intel i7 14th gen or the AMD Zen 4 7900X. Okay, so they're basically saying you need to have, how many? This is 8 plus 12. That's 20 plus this is like a 28 thread. Okay, so basically saying you need 28 threads or 24 threads, somewhere in that range, 24 thread, 28 thread. That's what you need for ideal. Because these were like 16 thread. So now you're going to 24, 28 thread. And then you need a 7900 XT or a GeForce 4080. Okay, these two, this looks like 4K to me. Wait, what? 12? These don't have 12 gigs. You know what? Maybe the VRAM doesn't actually... I think I'm starting to understand this. So, this doesn't mean the amount of VRAM that the graphics card has. This means how much VRAM you need for the given spec. So it means... Okay, so now I understand. This makes sense. Because this is an 8GB card, but you only need 4 gigs for whatever the minimum is. And then in the middle, recommended, you only need 8 gigs, irrespective of what the GPU is. And then for ideal, you need 12 gigabytes of VRAM, irrespective of the graphics card. Because the 7900 XT has 20 gigabytes of VRAM, so it has way more VRAM than 12. The 4080 has 16 gigs of VRAM, so it has a little bit more. It's got 4 more than this. So they both of them meet the 12 gigabyte requirement. Then you have 64 gigs of RAM. Okay. Interesting. And you need a 100 meg internet connection all of a sudden? Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I think they meant to say RX 50 or 570. Yeah, they must have meant 570 here. But regardless, this doesn't mean the GPU's actual VRAM. I think this basically says how much VRAM the game requires based off of the resolution. So, but the thing is, they don't actually say what the resolution is. So, for all we know, minimum could be 720, it could be 1080. Recommended could be 1080, it could be 1440. Ideal is probably 4K, I would guess, is 4K. Because they're listing these type of graphics cards with this kind of VRAM. Both of these have enough margin to support 12 gigs because they're both higher than 12 gigs. So I wish they would have said the resolution because that would have made more sense. This is actually worse. This table is worse than the God of War Ragnarok table. Like, that one at least gave you resolutions. This, even though it was vague, and it didn't tell you, like, 60 FPS, it was like, you know, 1440p high settings, or 4K ultra settings, or 4K very high settings, or 1080p low settings, you know, or whatever. It's like, okay, where's 1080p ultra? Anyway, that was the problem with the God of War table. This one is just straight up, like, awful in terms of how it was written. Like, this is dumb. First of all, they don't need to do... First, AMD doesn't need to be on its own column. Like, just lump it in there with Intel and NVIDIA. Like, there's no reason for these to be, like, separate columns. This table looks way too big. They need to delete like 3 columns and combine this stuff. DX12, 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 DX12 sounds retarded compared to just DX12 3 times. Yeah, so the GTX 970 doesn't actually, like, it's complicated. Anyway, yeah, so, yeah. Okay, well, that's Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's coming out. When does this come out? This is like November or something. Yeah, November 19th. Let me mark that down. Microsoft Flight Simulator is November 19th. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is November 19th. For PC and Xbox. Oh, because it's made by Microsoft, it will be on Game Pass day one. See, this is how they do it. This is their strategy. They want people to stop buying games and just subscribe to Xbox Game Pass. Like if you're not subscribed to Game Pass, you're doing it wrong. Like clearly that's how it's supposed to be. Anyway, here's another gaming article. Assassin's Creed Shadows is rumored to have 60 FPS mode on all platforms. That's good. Is that good or is that bad? What does that mean? Like, what does that basically mean? It has dynamic resolution scaling? What does that mean? It's rumored to have a 60 FPS mode. You can turn on 60 FPS mode. That means that it's probably going to look like garbage on the consoles until you turn on, unless you run it at like 30 FPS. If we're going off of Square Enix, now this is not Square Enix. I forget who's making this game. This is Ubisoft, isn't it? Who does Assassin's Creed? If we're going off of Square Enix's record, 60 FPS mode looks like trash on the consoles. And 30 FPS mode looks good, but it's like, who wants to play a AAA game at 30 FPS in 2024? Ubisoft does Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed died to you after 3? You couldn't play 4 because you couldn't get it? Well, I have no idea what this one is. Is this supposed to be like Assassin's Creed 7 or something, or Assassin's Creed 6? Did they stop doing the numbered thing and they started doing the Call of Duty thing where they just don't do the number anymore? Like, it's just called Assassin's Creed Shadows. I mean, this game looks like it's gonna be like, I don't know, Ghost of Tsushima. You uninstalled Ubisoft from your PC. Okay, yeah, I don't know what this one is then. Is this like the 7th game? Or the 8th game? I don't know what this one is. Like, it's the newest one. So this is supposed to take place during the Sengoku? This is Sengoku. Oh, another Sengoku era game? Really? Man, I feel like that's so overdone. It's so overdone. There's too many games that have come out in the last 3 years that take place in this time period that I feel like Assassin's Creed is going to get a lot of criticism because it's like it's following the trend. It's like, oh, everybody and their dog and their cousin all made a game in the Sengoku era. We got to go and make ours now. You know, I got to put our spin on it. I have a feeling I wouldn't be surprised if they get a lot of criticism and controversy because they're just kind of like curtailing off of the success of all the other games that went and did the Sengoku era. So they took heavy liberties in the setting with this one. Big divergence. Well, isn't that just because it's like medieval Japan or something compared to the other ones? Not only that, but the Japanese people have criticized how wrong they presented Japan. Wait, for real? How do they know? The game isn't even out. What? What? How will they even know? The game isn't even out. I mean, okay, guys, you gotta remember, I don't know anything about Assassin's Creed. Like, this is not a franchise that I pay attention to. I've never played an Assassin's Creed game. So, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I've seen gameplay. Like, I know it's like a stealth game. You're supposed to like hide and not get caught, and you're supposed I don't know, like, so what does that mean in this? Like, basically, okay, my assumption of this game, not knowing anything about Assassin's Creed, is that you play as a ninja and you hide and sneak around and you like eavesdrop and collect intel on like what the enemy's doing, or you have to steal some random artifact from a cave or an enemy encampment and you have to like escape before getting caught. Isn't that basically what the game is going to be? They made an effort to be believable in Assassin's Creed 1 to 4. There was a crossbow in a trailer for Assassin's Creed 1 and they had to remove it and apologize for it because of the time period. Ubisoft used a lot of Chinese stuff from the trailers. It's how they know. Wait, what? Wait, Chinese stuff? What? I'm confused. What does that to do with anything? Ubisoft now will take heavy liberties in the setting and double down. What? I don't understand. I have no idea. Like, why would people be mad? Like, the game isn't even out. I don't know. I feel like there's not enough info to go off of. You haven't seen enough of the game's story to actually understand like what it's about. I would assume you play as a ninja and you sneak around and you do information gathering, you hide from like bears and stuff, and then you like steal artifacts. That's basically what the game is about. Am I right? Am I completely wrong? Do I have no idea what I'm talking about? Like, you avoid bears, you avoid enemy soldiers in the encampments. You basically play the game like you're Snake from Metal Gear Solid, except you don't have a cardboard box. This game has been scrutinized for the last 6 months based on what they have shown. What? So people are criticizing because of a trailer? Is this one of those things where people are criticizing the trailer in the same way that people criticize the Fable trailer? Ubisoft showed demo. Is there a demo for this? You guys, I have never played an Assassin's Creed game, but the more you talk about this game, like, I actually am more and more interested in this game. I've never played an Assassin's Creed game before. This is becoming like my favorite Assassin's Creed game. Assassin's Creed Shadows sounds so cool because of what you guys are saying. Assassin's Creed, oh, it's Ubisoft, so it's gonna be on their thing, right? It's not gonna be on. Yeah, I don't see it on Steam. They are showing inaccurate historical accuracy. Wait, they're showing inaccurate historical accuracy of the samurai? Inaccurate. Huh? Inaccurate accuracies? What? It showed a 6'2" black dude in samurai gear. Wait, what? Hip hop music? Wait, what is this hip hop music? What? If you're going to play Assassin's Creed, start with the Ezio games. Wait, the accuracy. Wait, I'm confused. Wait, there was a 6'2" black dude in a samurai outfit? What? This is making me think of that one game from 2021? Or 2020. There already was a game like this, though. And it was made by the Japanese. It's called Neo 2. Neo 2 had... Okay, the black guy was from Africa. I forget how he ended up in Japan. Like, he was on like a Portuguese ship or something, and he sailed across and he ended up over there somehow. And he was like, if I remember correctly, in Neo 2, he he wasn't really a soldier. He was kind of like an NPC that was helping Nobunaga, and then I mean, they all end up dying when Nobunaga ends up like getting killed, you know, because he got betrayed. Like that's how the story goes. It had nothing to do with the black dude. He was just kind of there. Like it was unfortunate for him that he was stuck in the whole thing, and it's like that whole town, that whole city got burned down in a fire. So I don't know what Ubisoft showed, but like all I can say is the black dude that people are talking about that I guess is in this game. He was in Neo 2 and nobody complained. And that game is made by a Japanese developer. So I don't know what is going on with Ubisoft. Like they made the black guy into a samurai. Well, okay, in Neo 2, he was wearing samurai armor when he was trying to defend Nobunaga. But he didn't have a katana or anything. He basically had like a spear weapon. Because they don't just fight with swords, right? Like samurai, they use spears, they use bows and arrows, they use sword, they use katana, they use the wakizashi, whatever the big one was called, the odachi. You know, like there's different types of weapons. He is also the second protagonist. Oh, well, I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with that. I mean, to me, like, has there been any other game that has focused on that character? On this historical figure? All I know is there's a black guy in Neo 2. And he ends up, he dies trying to fight in support of Nobunaga. Like all the other people that were on that team. Yeah, he was the Obsidian Samurai. Yeah. He used an axe. Yes. Yeah. He was definitely in Neo 2. So are they complaining because Ubisoft gave him a katana instead of like a different kind of weapon? Is that the main reason? Like that's in older Assassin's Creed games, they would take historical legends and figures and weave them into the story in a believable way. Da Vinci in Assassin's Creed 2 played a big part in upgrading your gear. Oh, okay. People are mainly upset over they chose this type of setting and story when there are big legends about ninja, samurai. Well, it could have been well, okay. See, here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. So, from what I can tell from this picture, now that I'm looking at this picture, I'm gonna guess that the guy in the samurai suit is the black guy, and the ninja in the picture looks like a girl. It looks like a female instead of the actual male ninja, which was known as Hattori Hanzo. So if they were gonna do something that was historically accurate, they wouldn't use either one of these characters. They would have used either Nobunaga himself. Well, okay, no. If it's gonna be about an assassin, then Hanzo would have been the character to be the main protagonist, and it would have been a story about Hanzo more than like any of these others. Because okay, the black dude is a historical figure, but who is she supposed to be? The ninja girl. Like who is she? Is she supposed to be? Is she like a made up fictional character? Or is she supposed to be based off of historical fact too? Because the actual, like the famous ninja from back then in this time frame was Hanzo. And that's a dude. That's a Japanese dude. That's not a girl. That's not a random foreigner from across the ocean. Historical inaccuracies on samurai logos, buildings, banners. It's more than just the katana. The main character in Assassin's Creed also were never directly related to the... Oh, so they're completely random, like, fictional characters then. Well, then who is she supposed to be? Because the only ninja slash shinobi slash assassin type figure in that era that was very famous was Hanzo. So I don't know, unless they gender bendered, they gave Hanzo like the gender change treatment and turned him into a woman, and then they turned the black guy into a samurai, and maybe that's why everybody's mad. Who knows? Like, I don't know. I think if they actually did that, I think the Japanese would be more upset about them gender bending Hanzo into a woman than like putting samurai armor on a black dude. They're upset about both. Well, who's the female character? The female protagonist, who is she supposed to be based off of? Because, like I said earlier, like, I don't know. Well, unless they're like, I don't know, unless they're on different factions or they're both on the same side, I have no idea. Like I said, I know like next to nothing about Assassin's Creed, like the whole franchise. I just know what the gameplay looks like. I've never actually played an Assassin's Creed game. Anyway, well, I don't know if we want to keep dwelling on this subject, but I mean, the point is, the game has a 60 FPS mode on all platforms, except the Switch. Anyway, that's, yeah, that's interesting. Well, we'll see what happens as this gets closer to launch, I guess, for this game. This game comes out in what, November? Yeah, so this game will be out when the PlayStation 5 Pro launches, which means this is one that would go with like the Pro or something if somebody really wants to play this. I don't know how... Yeah, I honestly, I don't know how successful the Assassin's Creed franchise is. I would assume it's pretty good overall because they keep making the games. I mean, typically, if a company keeps making a franchise, it means that it's commercially successful. Look at Call of Duty. Look at Final Fantasy. You know, so this one's probably another really big title. The other one would be Dragon... What was that game? Dragon Age the Veilguard, I think. Dragon Age the Veilguard. Whoa, there's some new articles on this. The Veilguard exclusive, no side. I'm trying to find the... what are the system requirements for this? Dragon Age the Veilguard has... This is another really big game, though. Like, this one and Assassin's Creed Shadows are the two really big games that are coming out soon. You know, before the end of the year. So, I mean, Indiana Jones also, but Indiana Jones is, like, way off. Like, that's the very last game of the year. So it's, like, December. But the Veilguard is coming soon. Isn't this one coming out, like... When is this coming out? It's. I know it's soon. Okay, October 31st. I need to type that one in because I forgot about this one. Dragon Age the Veilguard. This is one that I'm not... Like, I'm kind of on the fence on whether or not I want to play this. Because this is not... This is a sort of game, like... It's kind of like Assassin's Creed for me. Meaning I've never played a Dragon Age game before. So I don't really know anything about the franchise. You know, I've seen like one trailer. It looks like it's not that hard to run though. It says minimum it requires a Core i5 from like late 2017 or a Zen 2 Ryzen 3 quad core. Like that's 2019. That's old. So, and then GTX 970 or 290X. Yeah, those two GPUs are about the same. SSD preferred, HDD supported, although it says supported, I don't recommend it. And then there's something specific about this game, though. It's like AMD CPUs on Windows 11 require a certain AGISA version. Like, I don't really... Oh, this may be because the... No, actually, I don't know why. Because the Zen and Zen Plus, they didn't support Windows 11. At least not officially. So I don't know if this has anything to do with that. But this isn't even Zen 1. So I don't know what that's about. And then it's like, okay, here, recommended. CPUs don't change. The GPU goes to a 2070 and a 5700 XT. And SSD required. So basically, if they're saying SSD required for recommended, I don't know why they would say it's required for recommended, but it's not required for minimum. Which means it's technically not required at all, but whatever. You can basically say this game needs to be on an SSD. But this is another one. Like, Dragon Age the Veilguard looks really cool in the trailer footage. But it's one of those games where I question if it's going to be very repetitive. A lot of people have told me that this game is going to be the next Baldur's Gate 3. Like, it's going to be just as popular as Baldur's Gate 3. And I find that hard to believe if this game is a single-player only game. Because Baldur's Gate 3 had multiplayer, which made the replayability significantly better. And if you were into Dungeons and Dragons, like, Baldur's Gate 3 is literally the game for you to play with other people. So I don't know if this can match the success of Baldur's Gate 3. If anything, to me, this game is more like a rival or more like a comparison to Dragon's Dogma 2 from Capcom. So that would be the game that I would be comparing this to. So it's going to be like which one you prefer, whether you like the Dragon's Dogma 2 style or this game style. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is more like a Monster Hunter game, and this is more like an actual, action RPG, from what I could tell. But I've never played this game. And I mean, having said that about this, I never played the original Dragon's Dogma. I only played Dragon's Dogma 2, so I went in blind, not knowing anything, and I was blown away. That game is probably the best game. Well, that and Final Fantasy VII are the two best games that I've played so far this year. So I don't know how this is going to do. This is one of those games where I'm a little bit weary, like, if it's going to be prone to criticism and performance problems at launch. But we'll see. But that's the Veilguard. It's apparently low PC requirements. So, that's good. All right. Let me see. What else do I want to talk? Oh, we were supposed to talk about Curve Shaper. I guess and we're already like, okay. Well, let's touch on this real quick. So, the GeForce 4090 and 4090D are to be discontinued next month in preparation for next gen 5090 and 5090D. That makes sense because next month the 4090 will be 2 years old, and typically NVIDIA graphics cards have a 2-year life cycle, and then they get replaced by the next generation. So, yeah, 50 series is coming very soon, guys. It's right around the corner at this point. And stuff like this, these are the signs of the times. 4090 is on the chopping block. It's the first one in line to get chopped. So, and then it's just going to trickle down from there. Now, I don't know if they're going to launch the 5090 first, though. Just because this gets discontinued doesn't mean 5090 is the first one to launch. They could still do 5080 first. It's totally up to NVIDIA. It depends on their go-to-market strategy and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it does look like, yeah, based off of what this person's saying, it looks like it's on the way out. So the 4090, it was good. It had a good run. But the time has come for the 4090. The time is up. That hourglass is running out of sand for the 4090's lifespan. So regarding the RTX 4090 and 4090D, I still don't understand what this 4090D is supposed to be in terms of differences with the 4090. I understand that they sell this in the Chinese market. I don't understand why they sell this in the Chinese market. I don't even understand why they need to distinguish a difference, unless it's something to do with the US government and machine learning. But it's like, who cares? Because this isn't even a enterprise product. It's not even a business class product. All right, there is no clear public info about the discontinuation plan of 4090. It is expected that NVIDIA will officially discontinue it in October and will gradually digest the inventory. That basically means let it go through the supply chain after November until the 5090D is launched to take over. And it may, why is it this one specifically? And it may not even be completely connected. I think this is a translation error. At the same time, the Chinese market only has the 4090D model. If there is demand, it is recommended to prepare early to avoid a shortage of stock after November, which may lead to possible increase in market prices. Okay, first of all, let me tell you something. This guy who wrote this, like, let me tell him something right now. If it's getting discontinued, don't worry about it. Because, like, why do you care? It's last gen. You would just buy next gen. Like, you're going to get a better product. It's like, who cares? Don't go out of your way to try to get 4090 if the price starts going up, when that basically means that a better, newer product is about to replace it. You know what I'm saying? That's like somebody, like, freaking out about, like, the last generation Honda Civic with the older body style going out of stock because they're about to bring in the new one with the new body style. You know, it's like, okay, who cares? Unless you really don't like the new one. I mean, yeah. Anyway. 4090D is gimped for AI. The RTX 5090 is shaping up to be quite the beast, with TDPs reportedly suggested around 600 watts. Okay, that's fake. And a very beefy design. It's going to be 450 watts. Expect more information in the coming months. So what is this? Oh, this is an old article. Okay, this was the rumor article. We did a whole section on this like last month or 2 months ago. 5090 is a 448-bit bus that clocks to around 2900 megahertz with, what is this? GDDR7, so 28 gigs of VRAM. So this is the 5090. Yeah, that is gonna be a high-end GPU. That is like a really, really high-end GPU. If it really has a 448-bit bus, that is gonna be significantly faster than the 4090. So it's coming soon. It's on the way. Yeah, any week now, we should start catching wind of the real deal. So expect to start seeing more and more info on the 50 series as we get closer and closer to the launch. All I really want to know at this point is, what will the stock, like the NVIDIA designed cooler for the 5090 look like? That's what I want to see. I want to see how the redesign looks on that, because they typically go like 2 generations with the same style of cooler, because 30 and 40 had a similar style. 20 series was kind of an oddball. It was the only one that looked like that. 10 series and 900 series and actually 700 series also, all of them had that similar style. Although 700 and 900 looked real similar. Like they basically recycled the cooler. But the 10 series looked a little bit different. You bet the gap between the 5090 and the 5080 will be even larger? I don't know. It depends. If it's a 448-bit bus and the 5080 is only a 256-bit bus, then yeah, then I would agree. Then there's gonna be a wider gap. However, if the 5080 is like a 320 or a 384-bit bus, then the 5080 will be well, it'll still be a gap, but I think the gap will be basically the same percentage. So I don't think anybody actually knows at this point, because there was one article from way back. So, okay, well, there's this. What is this? Like, I don't understand why that's like that. But anyway, these were all the rumored SKUs right here. So there was a 5090 Ti with 512-bit bus. Then there is a 5090 with a 448-bit bus. Then there is a 5080 Ti with a 384-bit bus. Then there's a 5080 with a 256-bit bus. So, okay, if they're going to do this, or if they're going to do this, why can't they also make like a 320-bit? Because the 3080 was the 320-bit. And then the 5070 is way smaller than this. Okay, and then they just show these. I don't know about this 205 thing. This is kind of random. I don't know why there's no 204. Why is this a 205? Where's the 204? Strange. I don't believe this. This looks super fake. This one looks questionable. This one also is kind of questionable too. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like a 207? The 205 looks fake. I can't see NVIDIA doing like one 203. Like, they can't do just a single 203. That's not going to happen. There's going to be a different one. I feel like these two are going to be 203. This, and there's probably a 5070 Ti is going to be a 204. And this is going to be a 204. So it's like, yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Like, this to me, like, all this could be just straight up fake news for all we know. And they can kind of do however they want to cut these up. It just really depends on what they're doing what they're going to do to get their uplifts. Because they got to slot the cards into their uplifts. And they don't have a super high-end node shrink this time around. So they're going to have to get creative, is what I'm saying. So they're going to do things like, they may make a 5080 be considered the bigger die compared to the smaller one. So they could end up on like a 203. The 5080 Ti could be another 203. You know what I'm saying? Instead of doing like a 204, because historically 80 class cards were also on like a 04 die. I mean, look at the 1080. So And the 680 was the same way. So they will give... Remember, they are on the same 4 nanometer, so they will give gamers a bigger chip. I don't know. I don't think that's how they operate. I think they do it based off of like how much the profit percentage is for the die. So, if you guys remember, back in the day, the 1080 was a 104. So there's nothing stopping them from doing 204 5080. However, I think if they were to do that, they would not get the uplift that they need, which means they're more inclined to go with a larger die for the 80 class product this time around compared to what they did back in the day for like a GTX 680 and a GTX 1080. So we could be looking at kind of like what we saw with Ampere or what we saw with the Turing, because if I remember correctly, the Turing card was a where is it? RTX. What was this? This was a 04. See, so they did TU 104. So they historically they like doing this because it does two things for them. One, it gives them better economies of scale to sell 80 class products. And two, they can sell the products at a lower price point to the gamers, so the gamers won't complain about them being greedy. So they could do the 104. Now they've done this a lot. So if we go to the GTX 680, the GTX 680 is a 104 part. This 2080 is a 104 part. Now, I want to also look at the GTX 980. The GTX 980 was a 204 part. Likewise, the GTX 1080 was a 104 part. So they like to do, whenever they can, they want to do 104, or they want to do an 04 die for an 80 class part, because that allows them to bring the cost to consumer down. That allows them to sell a smaller die. So they could do this. However, I feel like they won't do this because they need to slot the cards in above the previous generation. Meaning, if they made the 5080 a 104 part, I don't think it would be faster than the 4090. I think it would be slower. But I could be wrong, but see, they're not getting a node shrink. So they would have to do like some kind of insane like revamp of the entire way their driver's pipeline works. They'd have to do some crazy architectural differences to get the uplift such that staying on a similar node with a new architecture allows a 104 die to beat a 102 die. GDDR7 will help, but the thing is, the 104 die is still so small that I just don't think it'll be enough. I mean, maybe it can tie the 4090 or barely beat it, but I don't think so. I think they would need to go with an 03 or an 02 for them to be able to get a significant leap over the previous generation. Does that make sense? Because you got to look at the history. The history is that they like to sell 80 class parts as 104 dies. See, they stopped doing that though with the 30 series. So if we look at the RTX 3080, the 3080 was a 102 die with a 320-bit bus. So if they can't get a significant node increase, what they could do is they could sell the 5090 as a 102 or a 202, whatever. They could make a 202 die with 320-bit bus width. Now, are they going to do that? I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think they're going to do that is because they don't want to sell the big die at lower price points. So they don't like doing that. Now see this, look at this. The 3080 was a 628mm die. The reason why NVIDIA was able to afford pricing the 3080 at $700, despite it being a very large die, was because Samsung gave them a very good price for the 8nm node, and that's the reason why they were okay selling such a large die. Because remember, the yields are going to be worse, so you got less chips per wafer. However, if the cost is low enough from the manufacturer, in this case Samsung, then they're okay with it. So that's the reason why the 30 series was the way it was. So that's the reason why this one is kind of like a one-off. Now, it's unlikely that they do something like this again because they're not going away from TSMC. See, that's the thing. The TSMC node is not cheap. They can't just make a giant die and sell it for like $1,000 anymore. That's just not how it works. So if we look at the 4080 Ti, the 4080 Ti was a 103. So they could do something like this again, although let's think about this. So if they want to do like 35% faster than this for a 5080 while maintaining the same bus, and it's all differences to the memory, they're going to go to GDDR7. They're going to keep a similar core count. Yeah, I could see them getting... NVIDIA can do their magic. They can make it be like 35% faster. 5080 can be 35% faster than the 4080. And that basically means the 5080, if you just go off of Tech Power Up's numbers, that would put the 5080 at the top of the chart in front of the 4090 by, like 10% or somewhere around there. So, and that's all it needs to do, because Jensen likes to do the whole faster than, the fastest previous generation. He does it all the time. So, do you guys remember when he did, where is it? 1070, 980 Ti. So remember this. The 1070 is 12% faster than the 980 Ti. And I'll never forget when he said faster. He's a GTX 1070. Faster than a 980 Ti. So, these are the kind of uplifts. See, so basically, substitute the numbers. It's a math class. Basically, you substitute the 980 Ti for the RTX 4090. Then you plug in here the RTX 5080. And what do you get? Roughly 10% faster. So the 5080 will be about 10 to 15% faster than a 4090. So that is kind of what to expect. That's sort of what they're going to do. Now, obviously, it's not as huge of a difference because, look, we're talking about a 80 Ti being beaten by a 70 class next-gen part. So that clearly that's not going to happen. The 5070 is not going to beat an RTX 4090. However, the 5080 should be able to do that. It should be able to get this kind of gain over the 4090 without being the flagship. So, and if we look, well, I guess let's look at some of these other ones, I guess. So, yeah, so let's look at this. So the 3090, the previous generation, the 4090, according to Tech Power Up, is more than 60% faster than a 3090. That's a lot. That is a massive generational uplift. So what I would expect to see is this time around, it's going to be more like, if we go back here to the GTX 1080 Ti, and now we look for the 2080 Ti, the 2080 Ti is 30% faster than a 1080 Ti. So that right there shows what I was saying. And if we look at the 2080, the 2080 is about 10% faster than a 1080 Ti. So actually, Turing is a really good example of what to expect for the next generation. Meaning, substitute the numbers. 1080 Ti, you substitute this as 4090. And then you look, 5080 will be about 9 or 10% faster than a 4090. And a 5090 will be about 30 or 31% faster than a 4090. And that will be the generational uplift without needing any massive node shrink on NVIDIA's part. And the TDP on these GPUs will probably be largely the same. So I'm expecting the 5080 will be about a 300 to 350 watt TDP part. And the 5090 will be a 450 watt TDP card. So I don't expect either one of them to be any different from the last generation. It will all rely heavily on newer architecture changes because they're not getting a massive node density shrink. So they're basically going to have to do what AMD had to do going from Zen 4 to Zen 5. So expect similar kind of changes and uplifts from NVIDIA this time around. So we already know the ballpark numbers of what to expect. So now I'm going to memorize this by staring at it. So the 5080 is 10% faster than the 4090, and the 5090 is 30% faster than the 4090. Now I know how they stack up. Yeah. And yeah, and that's exactly how that's exactly how much faster the 5080 will be against the 4080. The 5080 will be around 30% faster than the 4080. That is well understood. You can derive that from looking at this. So, I mean, it's the same thing. So, we're looking at a Turing like generation all over again, which means there's gonna have to be some kind of selling point. There's gonna have to be some kind of software thing to compel them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're gonna have to basically entice gamers into buying into some kind of software gimmick again. Like, I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. Otherwise, I feel like a lot of people aren't really gonna buy into this generation. I think obviously the people, the diehard people are gonna upgrade instantly. Like, they're gonna go instantly. The 5090 is gonna sell out instantly. The 5080 is gonna sell out instantly. In fact, based off of the price, the 5080 might be the popular one this time around, because it's not gonna use that much power, and it's gonna be faster than a 4090. So, because I can see it now, 5080 is going to be $1,200, and it's going to be $1199, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are like, I'm going to get the 5080 because it's faster than a 4090. Like, that's what people are going to do. I can already tell. That's how these people think, man. Like, it's so obvious. It's so easy to assume how this is going to go down. Watch them lock the next version to do. Oh, yeah, of course. Of course they'll do that. They'll definitely do that. They'll definitely do that. When you say faster, new version. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, of course. NVIDIA never lets the previous generation get the new thing. That's how they upsell people to upgrade. That is the whole strategy, guys. Like, that's the name of the game. That's the name of the game. If you're going to be on NVIDIA's stuff, you're going to be chasing the latest and greatest software gimmick that they want you to use. Like, that's how it is. NVIDIA's a software company, people. Like, think about it. Like, let that sink in. They're a software company first. They're a hardware company second. They want you to buy their software. How do they get you? Well, okay, they want to sell you a new GPU. How do they get you to how do they get you to buy the new GPU? Software gimmicks that you can't use on your old GPU because it psychologically it makes you feel like your current graphics card is inadequate, that it's not new anymore. It's old news. It's a washed up has-been. You know, its best days are gone. It's past its prime. You know, like, that's how it's a psychological thing. Like, I guess people watching don't know marketing. Like, you don't know how it works. Like, that's how it works. Like, it's all psychological. It's all about making the consumer feel a certain way about the new product. They want to position the new product, like a 5080, in a positive light. And at the same time, they want to make the old product be viewed in a negative light, so that you feel like, oh, it's not that great anymore. Oh man, I'm getting the itch to upgrade now because my GPU's not good anymore. It doesn't have this. It can't do that. You know, like, oh, it's just, you know, it's not as fast. You know, like, that's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. And I can see it now. This thing's going to get announced. Here's what's going to happen. And here's the thing. The hype train and the tech channels, they are going to market this thing for free. They're going to hype it up. DLSS, 5.0 or whatever. It's like 50 series exclusive. Can't do it on AMD. Can't do it on 40 series. That stuff's old news. It's garbage now. No one wants that. That's trash. You know, like, that's how everyone is going to position it. It's like 50 series is where it's at. It's the new kid on the block. It's the new hotness. It's the cool thing. Like, everybody wants a 5090. Everybody wants a 5080. Like, that's what it's going to be all about. For the next, like, 6 months, it's going to be all 50 series coming from NVIDIA from the top. Take it from the top. It's going to go all the way through the tech media. And it's going to spiral through like a drill, boring a hole through the ground to make a subway station. That's exactly what it's going to be. I'm telling you the truth. I've seen this cycle played out so many times. It's so obvious how it's going to go down. DLSS 4, FrameGen AI 2. Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Leave it up to NVIDIA to invent some new gimmick that at first glance, nobody needs it, but leave it to them to convince you that you need it, and that's how the cycle starts over. That is how the cycle starts over, all over again. So, 50 series inbound. 50 series is inbound. 40 series is on the way out. Good riddance. Good riddance, 40 series. You had a good run. It's time to go. So, yeah, expect some rumors to start. There's going to be more rumors, and then eventually there's going to be some real news, and then it's going to come out. You know, it's going to happen. You need that 50 series GT. I know, everybody's going to feel like they need it. That's how the hype train is going to build it up. The big YouTubers are going to, you know, show it off. They're going to be doing like the reveal videos. You know how they do it. You know, they do the little teaser thing. Oh, 50 series, man. Here it goes. They're going to talk about architecture. They're going to talk about whatever changes. They're going to show off the new fancy Founders Edition that's like near impossible to buy. Then they're going to start showing that. Then it's going to show the launch cycle. You're going to see the reviews. The 5090 is going to basically beat everything across the board, like no matter what, it's gonna beat everything. I can see it now. The 50 series better be amazing for them to discontinue the 40. They'll brainwash you to make you believe that it's amazing. Just like they did for every other GPU generation. Don't worry about it. You'll be drinking the Kool-Aid soon. It's coming in. You'll see. This is like the beginning. This is like the beginning. You know, this is like step 0. We got to do step 0, and then we got to do step 1. Like actual real stuff starts getting announced. Okay, so this stuff's gonna come out soon. What is this Zotac thing? Oh, that's whatever. Okay. What is this, like, related story? Zotac unveils a GeForce 4070 with prices low, with only GDDR6. Yeah, see, this is the sort of thing, like, no one cares about this. 4070 with GDDR6. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Because we really needed to know about that. We need, oh, I see. We need to know about this so we know not to buy this. Okay. I get it. Software piece still needed to do full. Zotac was the company posting warranty claim on the Google Drive? Wait, what? Was that? No, that wasn't Zotac. Wasn't that MSI? Was that Zotac? I thought MSI did that. 7800 X3D. Isn't 7800 X3D still in stock at Micro Center? Although not everybody lives near a Micro Center. Man, it was Zotac, really? Yeah, XTX though, like real talk, XTX is probably like the smart choice right now, because you guys do realize, like, once Nvidia makes the switch from 40 to 50, they stop optimizing for the 40. So it's like anybody who has 40 series, once the 50 series comes out, all the optimization goes to 50 series. Like, all they'll do is fix bugs in the driver for the 40 series. They won't do anything for like optimization for 40 series anymore. I mean, that's the reason why you see, okay, case in point, let's go back to, where's that one? Like, let's look at Final Fantasy 16. Like, here, okay, let's look at this. Because I didn't even bother to look at these. But, okay, somehow, remember when they were making fun of, like, okay, do you guys remember, just to prove a point here, do you remember when the 4060 was launched and all the reviewers were saying, don't buy the 4060, it's garbage, the 3060's better, buy the 3060, save yourself some money, the 4060 is trash, it's a scam, it's a waste of silicon. And look where we are now. Oh, I wonder which one was the better buy. I wonder which one is aging better. When the 4060 is doing 42 and the 3060 is doing like 35. Notice how the gap has grown. Oh, I wonder why that's happening. Maybe it could be because Nvidia is favoring the 40 series with their driver updates. I wouldn't be surprised. So, yeah. So basically, as soon as 50 series comes out, guess what becomes the next 30 series? 40 series. 40 series moves into like 30 series position in terms of priority, and basically all the efforts go to 50 series. You know why? You know why? Because Nvidia wants you to buy a 50 series card. So they're going to prevent the 40 series from getting any sort of benefit from a development standpoint. They're going to put all the effort on the 50 series. The only thing that they'll fix is like a bug. You know, like if something's not rendering correctly for whatever reason and it's a 40 series problem. Okay, we'll fix that. They'll fix that. But like optimization, no. No. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like that, I mean, this is the thing with NVIDIA's generations. Like once they announce a new generation, never buy the last generation. You know what I'm saying? Because you're basically screwing yourself over if you want to buy NVIDIA, like that article like we were looking at earlier. Like this. Like, I can't believe somebody is like, hey, it is recommended to prepare early to avoid a shortage of stock. What are they talking about? Like, they're going to try to buy a 4090 after it's discontinued? Why would you go out of your way to buy a 4090 like after it's discontinued? Because the problem is it's probably going to go price hike, meaning the price is going to go up because people are going to try to like capitalize on low availability. They're going to use supply and demand to the vendor's advantage against the consumer. That's how it goes. So, this comment is dumb because like no one should prioritize a 4090 if they know it's discontinued, because it's like, why would they do this to themselves? You know what I'm saying? Like basically, it's math. Substitute the numbers. This 4060 is a 5090. This 3060 is a 4090. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get it. Clearly, the people either are... It shows... Okay, what it shows to me when I see stuff like this just shows a lack of experience with how it doesn't even have to be computer hardware. It just applies to like any sort of new product launch. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a straight up lack of understanding is all it is. So, yeah. I mean, the AMD one is weird because they're all like unified, I guess, because it's all RDNA. But whatever. Yeah, it's interesting how the AMD card is doing. Like, this ancient 5700 XT is like that much faster than the 3060. That is an eyebrow raiser. That's kind of weird. But I don't know how to interpret that. But anyway, that's interesting. RX 6000 is the minimum for any AMD purchase. I mean, I wouldn't buy RDNA 2. So, yeah, but that's the thing. Like, GCN is like super old though. Like, it's just, they separate it for a reason. That's because it's so significantly different in terms of the architecture. But yeah, it's this article is probably the most telling in terms of signaling to the fact that the 50 series is coming soon. Like, when stuff like this is public, and it makes sense because next year will be the 2-year anniversary for the 4090. Did I say next year? I meant next month. So October, literally a month from now, the 4090 will be 2 years old. So it's due for a replacement. Now, that doesn't mean that it's always going to be like 2 years and they launch something. That's not how they always operate. There was a very large gap between the 1080 and the 2080. So it really kind of depends on, what's the status on Blackwell and is it ready to go? Well, yeah, they should still support RDNA 2 because RDNA 2 is not that old. RDNA 2 will be 4 years old in November. So, RDNA 2, so a year from now, when RDNA 2 is almost 5 years old, that is when it's considered old. Like, I consider a GPU old at the 5-year mark. I mean, you guys know how I operate. I typically do 3, 5, 7 years. When a product is 3 years old, it's kind of like, I'll say it's not exactly super old, but it's not like the best thing anymore. When the product is 5 years old, it's considered old because there will have already been one generation that's newer than it, and then there will be another generation inbound that's even newer. So, yeah, because think about it like this. If we do, let's look at the, here, let's get rid of this. So think of it like this. If you have, let's say this is 2020. This is, let's just do 2 years, I guess. 2022, and then 2024, and then 2026. We'll do up to 2028, I guess. Okay, I'll go all the way to 2030. We'll do an entire 10-year. We'll do that. Okay, so what came out in 2020? 2020 saw the launch of RTX 30 series and RX 6000. So we'll just say that. These were 2020 products. Now, not the whole stack, but we can just put them here. We'll just put that stuff here. Then in 2022, we had RTX 40 and we had RX 7000. So keep track of these. So now we're at 2024. So technically, So this is coming, but it's like, what's happening here? See, that's why there's so many news articles about AMD and the whole, AMD is gonna skip the high end for this generation. They're gonna sit this one out. That's why there's questions like what's happening here. Like people don't really know what's going on here. So we'll just kind of leave that off for now. But if you look at it like this, so the 3-year mark is 2023. This is the 3-year for these GPUs. So at the 3-year mark, they're no longer the best GPUs because there's already newer products. Now let's go to the next one, the 5-year mark. So at the 5-year mark, which would be 2025, now you have 2 new generations in front of this. So basically what I'm saying is at the 3-year, there's the 3-year, there's the 5-year, and then there's the 7-year. So the 7th year would be 2027. So that'll be like over here, way over here. Can you imagine using an RTX 3060 all the way until the end of 2027? This is why I operate on the 3, 5, and 7-year cycle. A lot of people typically stick with their graphics card for around 3 to 5 years. It's somewhere in here. The probability that a PC gamer will upgrade, the vast majority of them think about the upgrade in somewhere between 3 and 5 years. So that means if somebody is on an RTX, we'll use the RTX 3080 because it was a very popular graphics card from the 30 series, and there's still a lot of people that still have this graphics card. So let's think about how old it is now. Around the end of 2024, we are now it's at the 4th year. It's 4 years old. So I would consider this card, it's definitely not the best graphics card anymore, even in its class, because there's better cards from AMD, there's better cards from NVIDIA. Now, there may not be better priced cards from NVIDIA, but there's still better cards in that same price point. At 5 years, so a year from now, the 3080 will be 5 years old. By the time the 3080 reaches 5 years old, the 5080 will be available. It will have been readily available for almost a year once the 3080 reaches 5 years old. And that's the reason why most people typically upgrade in this range, and that shows that they typically skip a generation. Meaning anybody who is on a 3080 and they're logical and they don't like to spend a ton of money every generation, they most likely skipped the 40 series altogether, and they skipped AMD's 7000 series altogether. And they're still on the 3080. So these are the sort of people that NVIDIA is really going to be targeting with their marketing efforts to get them to go to the 5080. They're targeting people on 30 series cards and anything older. Because now, if we do, let's keep going. So RTX 60. So now if you go to the 7-year, at 7 years, if someone does 7 years on a 3080, assuming it hasn't died, the 6080 will be the optimal choice at that point in time. So realistically, most people will either skip one generation or they'll skip 2 generations. And that's the reason why that logic of the 3, 5, 7 year holds true for most people. If someone goes beyond 7 years, it makes no difference at that point, because by the time you're beyond 7 years, your graphics card, no matter what the graphics card is, it is so old at that point that anything will be significantly better than it. $7900 XTX. 7900 XTX is not that old. See, the thing is, the 7900 XTX was from 2022, which means in December, the 7900 XTX will only be at the 2-year mark. See, it hasn't hit this would be the 3-year mark, and this would be the 5-year mark, and then the 7-year would be like over here. So unless you're somebody who upgrades every generation, whoops, I didn't want to undo all of that. Unless you're somebody who upgrades every generation, if you're on one of these, this upcoming 50 series is a complete skip. For most people, it's a skip. And on top of that, AMD's new thing is also a skip, even though we don't even know what it is. So most people who are on these, their upgrade is going to be sometime at the 2025-2026. So it's further out. Really, the 50 series is going to be targeted to people who are on RDNA 2 or the 30 series. Well, the longer they move it out, that changes expectations for it, but at the same time, it also gives it more time. What about those with 12 gigs of VRAM? Well, okay, that is a good question. That's a very good question. So we did not address the VRAM thing. So what can change, what can sort of break this pattern is monitor upgrades. Monitor upgrades can potentially shorten this cycle. Because, like, let's say you were someone who was on a 1080p monitor and you upgraded to 1440p. So let's use an example. Let's say someone has RTX 3070. They have 3070. And they went from 1080p to 1440p. So now all of a sudden the 3070 is already kind of like, well, okay, we have to use a different example. Let's just say someone has a 4070 then. Although, okay, let's think of a different example. So let's say let's use this one because this was 2022 or 2023, I should say. So that would put somebody within that less than 3 years. Okay, let's say someone has an RTX 4070 and they currently game at 1080p. No, let's say they game at 1440p. Let's say they currently game at 1440p. But let's say they upgrade to a 4K OLED 240 hertz / 480 hertz monitor. Well, let's just get rid of the 480 hertz right now. Let's just say that. Let's say somebody went from the typical 1440 144 and they upgraded to a 4K OLED 240 hertz. And they're currently using a 4070. Now, all of a sudden, their graphics card is a massive bottleneck for their gaming experience because this is very hard to drive. A 4070 is not going to be able to handle that. At least definitely not well. You're going to have to use DLSS balance mode for like every game. So if you want smooth playable frame rates. So now, see, this kind of situation would drive the cycle down. It would make somebody feel like they need to upgrade sooner rather than waiting. So the resolution typically determines the VRAM. So the question originally about like if you have 12 gigs of VRAM, well, that's really going to depend on the monitor resolution or just the resolution that you're playing at. Because I would say for 1080p, I would say this, like in general, 8 gigabyte is still mostly okay for 1080p. Now there are some exceptions where some modern games can exceed 8 gigabytes at ultra settings, even at 1080p, but it's not that common, I would say. And then 1440p, I would say is like 12 gigabytes right now. Like I would say 12. And then 4K, definitely I would say like 16 or more. 16 or more. This is basically the way I see it in terms of VRAM requirements for those resolutions. If you don't want to run into problems with running out of VRAM. This is a general rule of thumb, but I think this applies to like 90% of games. Or maybe even more than 90. Maybe like 95% of games. So there's still going to be some games that at 1080 they use more than 8, at 1440 they use more than 12, and at 4K they use more than 16. But it's extremely rare. I wouldn't say there's that many, especially at like 4K. I don't think. I mean, there's some games that I can think of, but in general, it's not really a problem. But yeah, so the monitor resolution dictates can actually shrink this upgrade cycle or invalidate this upgrade cycle. But yeah, great question. But anyway, guys, I think that's going to be it for this stream. I don't know what else to talk about. I was supposed to talk about Curve Shaper. I did a video on that. Eventually, I will get around to making the Curve Shaper video for the dual CCD. So like a 9950X. So if you're on 20 series... That's 2018. So that means if you're on 20 series, that's like what, 2, 4, 6. So you're at the 6th year. You're at the 6th year. So you technically have not reached the 7 year but it's coming up soon. Like, yeah. By the time you're at 7 years, that's basically when your GPU is considered really, really old. So yeah, something to think about. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this stream. I think I will do a live stream this weekend for Final Fantasy 16. We're going to be playing through Final Fantasy 16 on PC at 4K with all the settings maxed out. Yeah, we're going to see how it runs. And, I mean, I've already been playing through it, so I already know how it runs. But, yeah. So, stay tuned for that. It'll probably be, like, Friday. Well, it's either going to be tomorrow. I'll be streaming Final Fantasy 16 either tomorrow night or the following one. It kind of depends. But, yeah. That's going to be it for this week. If you're new to this channel and you like these kind of free-form, open discussions on, like, PC gaming, PC DIY, like building a PC. If you're new to building PCs, I mean, this is the right place. We answer all kinds of questions live, and sometimes if the question's really good, it can turn into its own like video, a separate topic altogether. So feel free to ask questions like that. We do this stuff every Thursdays. So if you're new, get subscribed to the channel. It does help me out. You can check out some of the video uploads. We did review the new Zen 5 CPUs recently. I looked at overclocking. We're going to be doing more overclocking content on Zen 5. And we may look at the new motherboards once they come out. But I've already talked a lot about the X870 and the X870E. And at this point, I'm just waiting to see like how the reviews for those motherboards end up. Like, are they going to be significantly better at running 4 sticks of DDR5, for example, or are they going to be able to run really, really high speed DDR5? So those are the sort of things we're going to be looking at. Oh, Tori with the $10 up, much appreciated. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it. So, like I said, every Thursdays we do Tech Thursdays. So, feel free to stop by. I tend to do these streams long so I can cover a pretty long time frame for those that can't view my content in the early part of the stream, or those that can't view at the later half, but they can view at the first part of it. So that's why I try to accommodate multiple different time zones here. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.